we've all, as you know, gotten big dreams. We've all pursued stuff. We've all taken massive action. We've all visualized. We've all learned a lot of woo-woo things. And maybe you've gotten some results some of the time. Maybe you've gotten huge results some of the time. But what can you do to really ramp up your results? Now, I want to say a little sidebar thing about this. As somebody who's been around kind of new age thinking most of my life, I had totally new agey parents, which I haven't talked about a lot. I had a father on the board of directors of a metaphysical university. And I was taught meditation in 6 different ways at the age of 16 at that metaphysical university. One of the things that happens when you're around spiritual communities and when you're around people who learn about the power of consciousness and intentional thinking, and trying to, bring intentional thinking to your life. The shadow side of this is there can be this judgment that comes along with it, right? Like, you can start to judge yourself when your life doesn't improve in the ways that you think it should, or in the ways that you want it to as quickly as you want it to. You can think, well, I must not be thinking strongly enough, or I must not be believing enough, or I must not be really ready, or I must be doing it wrong, or maybe the gods don't love me after all. So I just want to say, watch out for that sort of negative ego voice that says, well, this won't work for me, or this isn't working fast enough, therefore I am broken and flawed, or the way I'm doing it is broken and flawed. Like, just be careful. And because what happens in spiritual communities is there can be a lot of like, well, you got a car accident, why did you attract that? Right? Oh, well, this guy broke up with you, or you dated another narcissist, you must not believe that you really deserve, right? And I have to say, that kind of spiritual finger wagging that people do to each other makes me absolutely crazy. Makes me really, really angry. And so don't do it to yourselves or anyone else. And these techniques and principles and practices that I'm going to share with you, I promise you've heard before some of it. I promise. So this is going to be nice reminders, I hope. Some of it you already do, and they really do work. They really do work. Now, how much they work really depends on something bigger than you and bigger than the law of attraction or belief or faith. And that's, what's the destiny of the situation, right? Like, we could all sit here and really, really intensely visualize it's starting to snow. We could be like, snow, 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 snow. Well, I live in LA where it never snows. And if it doesn't snow while I'm envisioning snow, it doesn't mean I didn't try hard enough. It just means, that's not in the cards for this time of year in this place. And when it comes to using these technologies for something like love and relationships, what we have to be careful of is forgetting that there's another person in that equation, right? Love is a goal that's different than like, ooh, I'm going to double my income this month, or ooh, I'm going to, manifest a car, or, oh, I'm going to find my dream apartment. Relationships involve other people, and maybe the person for you is so much better than anything you could imagine, first of all. And maybe the person for you is on a journey that isn't ready quite yet for you. And so my favorite spiritual book, and Gandhi's favorite spiritual book, is a book called the Bhagavad Gita. I've talked about it before. You've all heard of it before. It's very, very famous. And essentially the entire book is about doing your spiritual practices, taking all the action that you can when it comes to what you want in life, and then letting go of results. So being not attached to it showing up the way you want it, when you want it, and how you want it, but doing your part so that you are doing the best you can on your end of things. So that's the attitude to have with all of this. So I hope that that is clear, because you know, the human brain loves to torture itself. The human brain loves to torture itself and loves to beat itself up. And I don't want you guys to use this as one more thing to beat yourself up with. Okay, so basically, when it comes to manifestation, there are 3 areas that are the most important, and then they have sub areas. But anyway, there are 3 topics that are super duper important. The first one is called the principle of Akasha. Now, you've all heard of Akashic records, probably, people who do Akashic records readings. So Akasha is essentially a word that is defined as being the foundation of all matter, the subtle essence from which all we know and experience as matter is evolved and produced. So Akasha is omnipresent, it's everywhere, and it pervades everything. So hearing about the Akashic record is apparently basically everything that's ever happened or ever been created is recorded in something called the Akashic record. And there are psychics who are trained to actually read the Akashic record. So you can ask them things like, what was my grandmother like? What was, you know, 500 years ago, what happened in my family? Or, you know, in my past lifetime, what was I here for? You know, when did I know my husband? In what past lifetimes did I know my sister? And there's apparently knowledge where all of that information can be accessed. So that's the Akashic record, and that's what Akasha is. Now, the next principle, and forgive me, this is academic and it's going to give you a headache. Okay, so the next principle is what's called the principle of prana. And prana is the essence of all motion, force, or energy. So it's the foundational essence or energy underlying everything. Now, prana is dual in nature. Dual means, you know, duality is like hot and cold, light and dark, near and far. And it's essentially the source of life force, chi, or vitality, or as Austin Powers calls it, mojo. So, right. And then the third principle is the principle of creative mind. Now, creative mind is imagination and will. And this is what people tend to focus on when they're trying to manifest. They think about, what do I want, and how can I envision it? And how can I hold that vision in my mind using my will to send out an energy to the world to both draw me to experiences and people and circumstances that will help create this thing, and then attract to me situations, experiences, and people that will, you know, create this desired result or outcome. So that's creative mind. So each of us, every individual possesses a portion of creative mind, which is used in something called visualization and projection. We're going to talk about projection because projection is one of the steps that honestly I've never heard before in manifesting, and it's super fun. So stay tuned. So yes, so each individual possesses a portion of creative mind used in visualization and projection upon the material principle which is Akasha, material principle, because remember, Akasha is all matter, aided by the energy principle, which is prana. So again, like chi or life force, so as to create in material form that which one is visualizing. So as you can see, creative mind requires the other two, right? It utilizes and leverages the other two to bring forth that which you're visualizing. So these are the three things. Now, yeah, okay. Now, one of my favorite sayings, and Mary Morrissey, who's Matt Boggs' mother, says this all the time, and the Unitarian Church talks about this, Science of Mind talks about this, and that's the idea that everything happens twice, once in someone's mind or thoughts, and only then in the world, right? So like every chair you see, every house you see, every haircut you see, that was in somebody's mind first before it became manifest in the material world. And so I love this idea that everything happens twice, and your life thereby is the result of what you envision and where you see yourself in the world, and what kind of life you envision for yourself, and what you believe is possible for yourself, and what you therefore have pursued and dedicated yourself to. Now, I mentioned, of course, that creative mind is both imagination and will. So we all know what imagination is, right? It's seeing imagery, it's visualizing almost like movies in your mind of what it is that you want. But will is actually the driving force behind the movies. So it's the instrument whereby the desired vision is projected upon the Akasha, right? Upon matter, and then held firmly there until the materialization is completed. So it says basically, the idea is that imagination and will are like the magic twins. They're both important. And so it's not enough to just visualize. You have to literally like hold the vision, and you have to be really strong about it. And to do that, you have to have a lot of will. You have to have a lot of like force behind it, which of course takes prana, which takes life force, right? Now, there are obstacles to this. And I'm going to read this little list that I thought was really good of the obstacles. So let's see. Dun, dun, dun. Obstacles to concentrating with a lot of will are things like not feeling well, right? Having disease, right? Having a mind that has a hard time concentrating, or not being really dedicated, or, you know, having the discipline to really focus the mind. One of the reasons all the sages and all the religions recommend some form of prayer and meditation is they really focus the mind. They're tools to help you both quiet your mind and become intentional about what it is you want. And then, you know, almost train the brain, right, to do like manifestation push-ups, right, or sit-ups, and to have the discipline to have a strong mind. So an apathetic mind is a huge obstacle to manifesting. Another huge obstacle is doubt and misbelief, right? Not believing, or not thinking it's possible, or not thinking it's possible for you. You know, so having that negative attitude about what it is you want. And then carelessness. So that means, you know, not doing it accurately, right? So instead of seeing movies, you just see pictures. And instead of, you know, holding the thought with great intention, you do it in sort of a vague way. So being sort of lackluster or careless. And then, you know, being lazy about this doesn't work. And then having erroneous ideas, having wrong thinking. You know, so many of us have wrong thinking. And one of the things that happens all the time when people, start being around what they want or meeting people who have what they want. What so often happens, and you've had this happen, you guys, is they're like, wait, what? You can do that thing and not have that degree, or you can do that thing and not have connections, or you can do that thing and not have tons of money, or you can do that thing and, you know, not have come from this kind of a place or not be this kind of a gender. And you start to realize that all your limiting reasons, a lot of them weren't really valid, you know, a lot of them weren't really true. So like in my work, women call me all the time and they tell me all the reasons that what I do won't work for them. You know, astrology won't work for them, or, you know, writing a great profile won't work for them, or learning how to date won't work for them. And I'm like, okay, then it won't. You're right. I mean, it totally won't, right? Because they don't have, again, that like right attitude or right beliefs. And then instability. So not being persistent with what we want, not being committed to it, really. These are huge obstacles. Now, there's something called the 7 little devils besetting the yogi, right? The seven devils. And one of them is physical sensations. So one of the things that makes meditation hard or yoga hard is like if you have an itch, right? Or you're hungry, then suddenly you can't concentrate on what you're trying to concentrate on, or, you know, your butt hurts in that position, or your foot's asleep, right? So this can be very distracting and lure you out of your focus, right? And then your senses, being distracted by a smell, or being distracted by a noise outside the window, or being distracted by somebody snoring, or being distracted by, you know, it being too cold or too hot. So anything that affects your senses can get in the way of your manifestation, you know, concentration. And then memories, right? I think so many of us are plagued by real experiences that have happened to us, and maybe multiple. If you have enough of those, then you have memories that say to you, this will never work. This won't go well. Remember the time you burned your hand on the stove and now you want to put your hand on the stove again, right? So memories can get in the way. And then daydreaming about other outcomes that basically totally wipe away all the visualizing you were doing. Because what do most of us do? We don't visualize what we want. We visualize what we don't want, right? We're like, God, I wish I could make a bunch of money, but then we envision living on the street, or we envision pushing a shopping cart, or we envision getting fired. And why? Because we have brains that are designed to be afraid. They're not designed to have faith. They're really not. So we have to force ourselves to have faith. We have to boost ourselves. We have to develop this part of ourselves like a set of muscles. Okay, and then there's involuntary thought analysis. And this is when we're thinking about what we're thinking about, right? This is when we're visualizing what we want, but then we're, you know, maybe not appreciating how we're visualizing it, or we're suddenly saying, oh, I should have added this, or why did I not think of it differently? Or so it's basically thinking about what you're thinking about. It's the best way I can say it. And then thought influence. Now, thought influence is taking on the thoughts of other people, right? It's saying to yourself, well, I mean, I want a great love, but I mean, everyone knows you can't get married again, right? Or everyone knows I can't get lucky like I was last time, because that only happens once. That's what my mom said, right? Or all my girlfriends have been single a long time. Therefore, why would it be different for me? So we have to be very, very careful to protect ourselves from, you know, taking on the thoughts and beliefs of other people. And then the last one is something called dimmed consciousness. And this is when, if you only visualize like late at night or early in the morning, when you're not really awake and you're not really alert and you're not really able to focus because you're kind of asleep, right? Now, this is different than using The subliminal recordings that I recommend so much, or the self-hypnosis tools, because those can be very helped by being in like a dream state. So anyway, okay. And I know we're going really fast. Okay, so the next tool of manifestation, and I love this one, is mantras. And essentially, mantras are things that you use to energize your thoughts, to relax your body and mind so you can focus your concentration, and to help increase your belief. Now, these can be done verbally, these can be done semi-verbally, and these can be done only in your mind, so non-verbally. And what's amazing, and I've heard this before, is that non-verbal is considered the most powerful. It's more powerful than singing them or speaking them. It's more powerful than kind of humming them to yourself, which would be like semi-verbally. But the most important thing is doing them. But essentially, it's the idea. Mantras or affirmations is another way to say it, is sort of like saying an incantation or a spell, right? It's declaring the thing that you want. Now, mantras are used in most of the great religions. Catholicism uses the novenas, right? The different prayers over and over, like Hail Mary. There are mantras used in the Muslim religion, and then of course in Hinduism. So mantras spread around the world, basically, and they're a really beautiful spiritual practice. One of my all-time favorite. And you can chant to the planets. I'll send one of those. That can be really good. This can align your energy with the different planetary influences. Okay, so here's something I've never heard of before, and it's called projection. And this is so interesting, you guys. So it's the idea that you generate all this thought about what you want, all this visualization and all this energy behind it, like all this chi, and you hold it with your will, and you get very, very clear and very specific about what it is you're envisioning. The more specific and the more intense, the more powerful it will be. And then what you're supposed to do, this is so cool, is you're supposed to project the thought out into the world and purposely send it to all the people involved in whatever it is you want. So like if you want your dream person, then just trust that the universe knows who that is, and send it out etherically, energetically, to the person that it's supposed to land on, and just trust that that will happen. And supposedly it does. Okay. And I know this sounds like complete mumbo jumbo, right? To the empirical Western mind. But basically you want to send out your thought with an act of your will, and simply make up your mind to project it. And it basically, you're willing to will its projection. And so the way to do this is to see what you want, send it to where you want and who you want. So like if you're interviewing for your dream job, you want to see yourself getting the job, and you want to send, an image of having an amazing interview and hitting it off with the interviewer, and you feeling really relaxed and calm. You want to send that out before the interview itself, and that these thought forms actually set up the interview. Like they actually go out into the world, and you want to actually send it to whoever is involved in the interview process and in the job selection process. And then, so you send it to where and who you want it to go to, and then you give it an extra push. Like you literally use your mojo or your life force, and you actually right? You actually send it out. How fun is that? I just love that. And the idea is that thoughts are things, that they actually are real, and it's like an electric current, if you want to think about it. So they're things as much as any, light or electricity. And when carried out with strength, it creates, again, that life force, that prana, which vitalizes the thought. And right, so you want to see all your interactions going the way you want them to go. So if it's a date with somebody new, you know, see yourself totally comfortable and knowing exactly what you need to know and reading the situation perfectly and feeling really good. I would do that more than seeing the guy be madly in love with you, because you don't even know this guy yet, probably, right? If it's an early date or a first date. So what you want to see is how great you feel and how clear you feel and how comfortable you are. So see the part that affects you. Yeah. Okay. So psychic broadcasting. This is another thing I hadn't heard of. And this is essentially the law of mental attraction. And this part of it I have heard of. I just haven't heard of the term psychic broadcasting. So this is the idea that we attract those whose mental attitudes are attuned to the same psychic wavelength as our own. The idea that whatever frequency you're on, whatever radio station you're on, is who you'll attract to you. So if you keep attracting, you know, if you're sad and you keep attracting sad people, then maybe you need to heal your sadness, or maybe you need to give your sadness more support, right? Maybe you need to feel it more. And I mean, I don't know what, but the idea is that we're all like tuning forks, and we put out a sound that activates people that are of the same sound, right? That are the same kind of tuning fork. And pretty soon we're all like, oh, right? So it's the birds of a feather flock together idea. So it attracts the people, situations, and things that are in vibrational harmony with your thoughts. And it attracts those in harmony with your thoughts to you. So again, be specific, be specific. So, so have a clear mental picture of exactly what you want, when you want it, where you want it, and how you want it. Now, I love this. It's the idea that this is not supernatural. This is not beyond the laws of physics, that this is super normal, meaning, I don't mean like it's totally normal. I mean like it's beyond normal, but it's not beyond the laws of nature. It's actually working within the laws of nature. So, so this is the law of attraction, which is the thought itself, and then faith in the thought, right? So many women will come to me and they'll say, you know, I really want a guy like this, 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 and this. And I'll say, great. Do you believe he exists? And sometimes they'll say yes. A lot of the time they'll say no. And then I'll say, do you believe that he'll want you? And that one's a big one, right? Because he might exist, but does he want you? You've got to have faith in all of it. You've got to have faith he exists, and you've got to have faith that he's been looking for you as much as you've been looking for him. And the problem is, when you don't have that faith, that's when you'll accept less. That's when you'll settle. That's when you'll stick around for the guy that's mean to the waiter, right? Or you'll stick around for the narcissist, or you'll stick around for the guy that you're totally sexually incompatible with, or whatever it is, because it's too scary to give up some of what you're getting, to hold out for the real thing, unless you're absolutely sure you can have the real thing, right? So when you have the thought that you really want, right? When you visualize what you really want and you really believe you can have it, this is when unforeseen things will begin to happen and a new life will emerge. And this is when you attract the persons and the things that you want. So desire and will are both needed to manifest. The combination of your desire and your will creates the battery of manifestation to attract and lure what you want, as well as to drive and compel you to go get it. Now, I'm a huge fan of, and I've joked about this before, the law of Goya, which is get off your ass, right? Goya. The law of Goya. And the law of Goya says, you know, do the law of attraction and then match it with massive real world action, right? Because the combination is unbelievable. And what I find is taking action in the world helps you keep believing more, because you're like, wow, I guess I'm not dying. I guess this isn't that hard. I guess this isn't as scary as I thought. I guess I'm actually better at this than I thought. And you develop skills and you get more confident, and then that increases your faith, right? So here's how you do it. This is a little summary. So you want to clear your mind. You want to make a clear, definite mental picture of what you want, and then see it as a motion picture. You want to project it into the minds of all involved, sending it with like a little punch, right? And then you want to affirm positively that this will happen. I'm a big fan of saying, and so it is. And so it is at the end of your visualizations or your affirmations or your prayers. Now, the key to it all, the most important piece of this, honestly, is, drum roll, love. The key to it all is love. Love and devotion is the key to it all, because this is a practice you have to be devoted to. And the only way you'll be devoted to it is if you really love what you're envisioning. If you're envisioning something that you actually don't love, then you're going to be like, I want it. But the magnetism of your life force will not be behind the visualization. So I'll give a quick example. I have a really good friend who cannot get a job. She's been trying and trying and trying for 4 years. She lost a job 4 years ago. She got pushed out by a manager who wanted to hire a friend. She lost her job in a really sad way. And then, oh my gosh, in 4 years, you guys, she can't get another good job. Like, she's gotten like, you know, so she was on unemployment for a while, then she had stimulus money, and then she's done some freelancing, and then she's had like a 3-month gig and a 2-month gig and a 6-month gig, but she can't get another job like that job. It had like amazing benefits. It had an IRA, it had, you know, medical and vacation, and it was like really high paying. She just can't get another one. And now she's actually even living on credit cards, and she's interviewing and interviewing and interviewing and interviewing. And I know exactly what's wrong. She doesn't want any of these jobs. She doesn't love them. She's not devoted. Her heart isn't in it. So there's no life force behind the interviewing, right? And what starts to happen as you don't get jobs and you don't get jobs and you don't get jobs, which you could fill in, right, with, and you don't get a boyfriend and you don't get a boyfriend, or you don't like your date, or you don't like your date, or you get your heart broken, or you get your heart broken, is you start envisioning only negative stuff, right? So she's only envisioning negative stuff, and she'll have an interview and she'll be really nervous, and her energy will be really off. And I'm like, sweetie, you're really good at this, and you've done this for 25 years, and you're really talented, and you've made like millions of dollars for companies, and you've impacted so many people, and remember, you're awesome. And she like forgot, because she's in that cesspool of negativity, right? Which is human. It happens. It's hard to like keep pulling ourselves up. But what I've said to her is, you don't love this. What could you do that you love? I don't care if it's flipping burgers. Like, what do you love? What would bring you joy? What would bring your heart back on board? Because we've talked about before, you guys, the heart is the magnet of the body. The heart is the driver of manifestation. And when you find the thing you really want, that when you envision it, you get like giddy and your heart like soars, and you're just like so jazzed. And if you had that thing, you would feel like the luckiest person on the planet. That's what I want you visualizing, that stuff. Because that's the stuff you will show up for. That's the stuff you'll work hard for. That's the stuff that will keep you going when there's delays or disappointments. That's the stuff that will make life worth living. That's the stuff that will make your life great. So your standard needs to be love, not like, right? Love, not like. Not, I like this thing. I love this thing. Not, well, it's a good enough job. No, it's a great job. No, not, it's a good enough guy. No, I like love this guy, right? Or don't have a guy. Because cats are just as good, you guys, as the guy you like, right, ladies? So many of you have cats with you right now, right? You know me and cats. And I'll tell you something so cool. I found this out today. I didn't even know this. How did I not know this? The word love comes from ancient India, from Sanskrit. It comes from the word lubh, L-U-B-H, which is the word for craving. Isn't that so funny? So love creates this field of emotional induction, and it's like a bolt of lightning to your manifesting. It like creates a lightning rod. It creates magic. It's the most powerful mojo, the most powerful prana, which is that life force stuff again, that you can put into manifesting what you want. Now, very, very important, ladies, only use these powers for good. Only use everything I just shared with you for good, because this stuff is powerful. And so never wish somebody ill will with this stuff. Don't project onto somebody like that they have a bad day or they don't get a job that you want, right? Like, only use this for good. Always say this or something better. This, or, you know, what's best for all involved, you know, always add those little maxims.